Okay, welcome everyone to the 46th Keshe Knowledge Seekers Workshop. I'm Rick Crammon, your host, and today, once again, we'll be with Mayran Keshe of the Keshe Foundation and other knowledge seekers of the Spaceship Institute, such as Marco and Armin and Elia. And today we'll have a number of topics to cover, including what we see on the live stream there now, which is the new configuration of Armin's reactors in the Spaceship Institute. And Mr. Keshe will have a number of other topics to cover today. So without further ado, let's move over to Mr. Keshe and see what he has to say for today's workshop. Hello, Mr. Keshe.
Good morning, good evening, a good day to all of you. Thank you for being here for another session. We try to, as we said, change the course of the teaching of the foundation, and we carry on with the same theme and the same work. Today we show a new development, which is these are the new systems which Armin has brought with him. They are totally new setup, new structure, but with this setup we are able to test new dimensions and new facilities. What this means is, if you look at the picture, you see small, very thin, small motors, and then you see a black motor in the background. These are set, if you have a full picture of it, you can see, yeah. You see there are a set of 3 internal, a set of 3 external, and there is one core of the black size motors, because there are slightly different diameters, the cores, sits on the top. So what we are testing, and we're going to testing, is double core 7 combination system. This means that the 3 internal ones will create 1 core, and hopefully the 3 outside one will create another core, 2 plasmas superimposed internally. To our calculation and assumptions, when we put the top core on, the principal core on the top, then the inner core will be as spherical as possible, the outer core will be flat on the top, because of the dimensions and the field forces within the parameters of the structure. Somebody's got the microphone on in the background. Then what this should give us, if you go back to a couple of sessions before, we explain about the creation of light by interaction of plasma. What we try to achieve is that the inner core circle, what we call the core number 1, in the center, it will have fields which are going inwards, will become and behaves very much like a principal core. The core created by the bigger ones outside will enforce itself on it, and the interaction of the 2 plasmas will create a condition to create new dimensions in the work. This will allow us to be able to test very much plasmatic conditions that we see in the universe, or what you see at the upper atmosphere of the Earth and the magnetic field of the Sun. If we get it right, and if everything goes correct, we should see a ball of light in the middle. If we push the parameters further, we should be able to see a condition that the field forces of the outer will force the inner, and what we get, it'll be expansion of the plasma beyond the boundary of the plate. While we were talking, teaching during the Spanish lesson, when he came and Armand got expired, he disappeared from the room and he was in the lab. And when we went down, we found he stuck the blue plate, as you see, on the outer side. This blue plate is nano-coated GaNs material on the top, nano-coat material internally, black. It's the normal caustic condition which we developed. And his understanding was to, as we said, by placing the plate anywhere in the sphere of this field, the interaction of the plasmatic magnetic field with the plate should create light or heat. And that's why you see this plate here. We think this will be in the latter part of the process, because what we're discussing with Marco this morning is that we have seen enough operation of open reactors. This set, the white plate, today goes inside what we call caged system, very much like a what do you call it, flying object. We have it, it's already been purchased before holidays. Now we have the opportunity to place it inside it. So after today, I think the only visual contact we will have internally with this will be through a peeping hole. We have to make a hole on the structure, that even though we have the facility and we test things in, we have a view inside the system. We've done peeping holes, what we call windows, on all the nuclear reactors in the past, so it's not something we haven't done before. If you go back to the beginning of last year's tests, all the reactors we built in Iran have that facility that we could see the operation and interaction of the plasma internally. This situation gives us two new dimensions. First of all, the environment inside of the, what I call the containment, will be lined with copper sheets. And then the copper sheets will be nano-coated through the steam process. Then we place it on top of the plate. Or we put the plate on the base of the system. In this process, we achieve three new dimensions. One is that all the fields become monoplasmatic magnetic fields. What does this mean? Because we have coated the copper sheets and the internal structure of the containment, as all of you know, copper reaches to a level of absorbing certain amount of gravitational magnetic fields, the nano layers which are created on it. So we put a bandwidth on the fields which can penetrate or reflect. So everything will reflect back into the system. So we create the enclosed circuit field, plasmatic field. It literally becomes like the Earth. It'll feed itself. So we will see new dimensions in the structure and the work. Secondly, by containing it, the field forces in a free plasma will show characteristics which has not been seen. I hope we can show a flight system with this. But there are some parameters which cannot be controlled. Maybe we lose some fields and we condition ourselves in different direction. One of the problems with this is that the structure will absorb and create new conditions for the fields which are introduced and the current introduced by the power supply. One of our targets was to connect this system to a battery that makes it independent. Now we have that opportunity to do as well, because we can mount a battery on top of the dome. In reality, the whole structure will be replaced. And the whole structure will be, what do you call it, get the new field strength of monoplasmatic strength, or at least we filter the weakest part out, so we only will work with a strong plasmatic magnetic field within the confinement. There is a high possibility that they interfere with the current flow wires within the system. We have to see how we can handle it. We've seen this with the test in Iran, but somehow after a while the fields pass the matter level current flow, and then the system takes its own action. It will be videoed, most of it, where you will be able to see whatever we achieve as usual. With a foundation, we don't put anything in the background. Whatever is there, whatever the knowledge seekers decide to show, they will show. This will, this setup, once we achieve positioning and whatever we achieve, has a second characteristics. The second characteristics comes in that we have two options. We can keep the black motor circuit in position and move the small cores, the inner core set, which is the smaller cores, out in the background, in the boundary of the disk. This new system with a stronger in the middle, with a weaker coming out. And if you look at the structure of all these attachments, these cores can be rotated 360 degrees and can be brought in an angle back and forth. So what this can do for us is, if we keep the larger cores in the position or bring them a bit more forward, and then move the smaller cores, which is at the moment in the center ring, outwards, then by what we put inside each core, we can start dictating the production of material. What it means, the plasma, free plasma inside will stay, and the cores, the smaller cores which come to the boundary, which can be twisted backwards to go literally to the edge of the, as you see, the slots on the plate. By how and what field strength we create in these small cores, we dictate what materials we're going to collect in that zone. So for the first time, we have the opportunity to test for matter production through plasmatic conversion. This is a very highly technical point. It needs a little bit of more understanding from the knowledge seekers. What it means what is created by the plasmatic magnetic field of the center core, which is the free core we've seen before we went to 129 Tesla. We dictate how much goes towards which reactor, and interaction with the field of that reactor in different position or composition of material in the core, we dictate what material is available to be produced in that direction. In a way, the center core, free core, which is being maintained by the 3 black cores internally, becomes the sun. And then each one of the small reactors, depending on what we put in that composition, that creates its own field, and depending on its position and the distance from the core, dictates one behave like a Saturn, will produce helium, and the other one, which is in a different direction, will create condition like Earth to produce mixture of materials. This has not been done before. It's a breakthrough in the knowledge, and then we can expand the knowledge. The reality with this condition is, with putting this contained condition under control, then we start playing the real space technology. Up to now, whatever you've seen has been developments of the systems to get us to this point. Most probably will bring new GaNs materials. We have to produce new, much stronger GaNs materials. Depends on our cooperation with 2 or 3 governments. If we can allow, and if we are allowed to bring in plutonium GaNs level with authorization of governments, we will see one of the most fantastic conditions in the universe. With this technology, from now on, the way it sits, we dictate the destiny of the material we produce. Now we can create the plasmatic condition to produce water directly from the plasma, not from the environment. To do that, it's very simple. I teach you how to do it, but we have to come to it. So in a space we produce water from the plasma, free plasma. We don't need to rely, because now we have the sun. We decide what we want from it. This is a huge step in the science, and as I said, we are given gifts, and now we receive the gift. And this is one of the beautiful things which is sitting with the whole structure. And once we show this, what we promise as a world peace will be enforced. Because to set such a system for anyone costs less than maybe $100. Then you decide how you want to use the system, as you call it, the plasmatic condition oasis. We spoke about the oasis cup and the system in the Spanish group session this week. If you want to understand it in more detail, go back onto the Spanish session. In the second half of the talk, it was explained in more detail. We spoke before this talk with Vince and Rick, but we said we're just going to put a small note to it. I think you have to go and listen to the Spanish session, number 7, in the second part, or from the beginning, either way you like, that you understand what is going to happen here. In the cup we spoke in the Spanish session is between the magnetic field and of a plasma in the plasmatic condition and matter. Energy and the information condition which created. Now for the first time with this set, we speak and we start working in a real space condition. Means that from now on, man has the destiny and the capacity to produce materials exactly the way he decides. If you look at the picture of the sets of the which is on the plate, with the 3 reactors or 4 reactors which are sitting as a set, and the 3 additional reactor. If you go back to the pictures of the work of the knowledge seekers in June, July last year, you have seen the same setup with 3 reactors around, with 1 master reactor, we call it principal reactor, and 3 other reactors in a vertical position around the center. Now this time we brought everything together. This time we can dictate plasma from plasma without interaction of matter. This is the first time you see a full universal system in conversion of matter, energy and plasmatic field into matter. This will bring into play the change of the status for man. In its simplicity, it shows man independency from the earth. It shows a full structure in how man can travel in space without depending on any more on anything on this planet. This is the change of course, and we said we enforce peace through technology. And now this is the first basic system to show how it's done, and now we try to find a way that we can allow you to be able to see the operation of this. If we don't see the light internally, if we don't see the lift, it means we have to change our parameters. We have to bring new system and technology to further increase the system. If we can show back on the plate, please, Rick. There is important point to show. Okay, yes, okay. If you go back on a full view from the top, if you stop it somewhere there, yeah, where we can see it as a full set. Yeah, okay. Now you got to realize something. If you can go further in, yeah. You see what I explained to you with the 3 small reactors to come out to the boundary to create different materials and conditions. The same reactors, because we don't need continuously to produce materials. These 3 reactors, in the time of flight, are moved to the boundary of the disk in a vertical condition. What this means is that by increasing the fields in any of the 3, we dictate the direction of the motion and the shielding on the direction of the motion. If you take, for example, the small reactor which is facing you, between the 2 front ones, which is closest to you in the picture, when you move this to the edge on a vertical condition, and you increase or add its power to the center core, you increase the shielding in the direction of the motion. When you are in a hovering position, by removing all 3 in the same position to the same strength, you dictate hovering condition full shield capacity. This is the point when you see a bright light in the sky as a sphere shape, as an oval shape. Then the other parameter which will dictate is that when you look from outside in a hover position, you can reduce the shielding that you can see from inside outside. And at that point, you will see 3 bright lights on the boundary periphery of the craft. These additional cores have a multi-purpose, and they have to be used according to what the need and the demand is at the time. For a rapid extraction, you put the whole 3 small reactors to the boundary at a high power. You create a second shield. Your first 3 reactors, the black one, create a shield, let's say about 10 centimeter, 20 centimeter away from the craft. By putting the other 3 in the outer boundary and increasing their fields, you create a second shield, let's say about 2 to 3 meters away. So penetration is impossible, and at the same time, if you increase one of the powers of the three further on, you create a directional motion with the full facilities. This is what we call the escape route or rapid departure. These now we have the facility to show. With what Arman has brought on the table with the new reactors, the space technology in true sense has opened up. We do not interact with matter. We create matter out of the plasma of the ganses which you produced into, we convert the energy, plasmatic magnetic field of the gans of the matters into a free plasma, and through it we create a new condition to convert it back to what we need. So in a way, your free plasma in the center of the set becomes the sun, which itself was created from the matter. And then you decide how much of this piece of cake you want. You want a small piece, you call it hydrogen. You want a bigger piece, you call it gold. So the destiny of man in space, this set in its simplicity breaks through for mankind the detachment from the planet. That's how simple it's been. But we had to teach, and now we are exactly a year from the establishment of the teaching. You can see how far we come. The whole structure will change. In the next week or so, Arman is mounting a new set on the same kind of formation, but all the plastic containers will convert into a copper, and it goes on a full copper confinement. So from now on, you will see two flying objects on the desk. Which one will fly, how they fly, it'll very much dependent on how we get performances. I know the breakthrough, final breakthrough will come when we, our final agreement with the Japanese government come into action. When we achieve what we hope in the next 2 or 3 weeks with the Japanese government, then the space technology will move into a totally new direction. Depends on our collaboration, how we can get facilities arranged with the Japanese government. Then I show you a new dimension in teaching and a new dimension in space technology, which the facilities at the moment are not available. One of the systems which we can achieve to do this is what we promised our American colleagues and friends who are here, and to our Iranian national security people. If you understand the operation of this set, you can move the 3 cores into the center, and the 3 cores in the boundary create the consciousness and the physicality of the matter. This is exactly what we call the peace reactor. What you do is you enforce the condition of the free plasma to take its position as the thalamus, the consciousness, the soul. You raise the weaker part, which is the smaller reactors, slightly higher in position because we have the flexibility. It creates the physicality. And through balance and just and correct magnetic gravitational field within the thalamus, you bring balance into the structure of the physicality. And with 2 or 3 reactors like this, man will forget what war is, man will forget what it's got in the hand is for. We explained and we said, governments have to move or we make them to move. Now this is the breakthrough. There is a hidden work into this. As I say, I give you Rolls Royces, but I don't give you the key. The key will be given to the government. This is the enforcement of our knowledge and technology towards a peaceful process. This will force governments to come to an agreement, and we will show it. We will show it that people even in Italy will not even remember what is fighting. What I call the craziness of Italian drivers, which we see here and we enjoy, will be part of the past. Then we show the power of this technology in reality. As I said, we'll enforce peace, and this is the table of peace on the screen. We don't go to change things, we allow the changes to come through the government. Now all of you know, if you are a true peace lovers, and the meaning of the work was to achieve peace, if you can make such a setup, if you have the facility to develop such a setup, then you link up across the planet, and then we give you the fuel for the peace. The peace comes out of balance, out of correct distribution of the plasmatic magnetic field in the strength of the amino acid within the structure of the brain of the man. And to do that, everything is on this table. And if the governments want to know what is the fuel, the blood of man is already in the gas state in any of these reactors, will dictate and enforce peace. But you have to know how to analyze it, how to process it to be able to achieve. And strange enough, a lot of you run the system. The pure blood goes in your GANS systems which you've been developing. We have explained again and again how the amino acid in conjunction with iron gives a pure blood with line with amino acid. Connect the physicality to the emotional part, blood with the copper. Then, because everything is in balance, the man on the wish of one command will forget what war is, because he finds peace and balance in his emotional part, which will enforce the physical part. So, in Bongo today, we have shown you the food, the peace, and the interaction into space. And as I said, we'll enforce peace. And now we have the tools to show it how it's done. Now the door of research opens up. Now, in so many ways, you should understand how the process will be carried out. We gave enough time to the governments, we gave enough time to the religious people, we gave enough time to the others to be ready to move. And the Peace Corps team have done all their works in the background to be able to achieve. Now we give the tools of the peace. Everything has been and is in the hand. Now is depending on how fast the humanity would like to take the next step.
Mr. Keshe, we're moving right along with our setup here, as you can see on the live stream. It's I've used an old computer, one of the first desktop Mac systems, first Power Mac system. I had an old one, I've used the power supply of the computer, and I've put in a computer fan controller with 4 controls here that runs off the power supply of this old computer, and that's all I've used on the actual computer for the electronics. But this power supply will be able to power 4 computer fan reactors, which we will have set up here shortly. Underneath each of these is a reactor, and so we have a control that gives us both RPM and voltage readings on each individual reactor, and we'll be able to control that aspect of it. And the actual motors will be built underneath inside the computer. That's just regular computer fans. Will be very easy to set up, very simple and inexpensive, and controllable. And the advantage is this cover actually has a metal plate underneath that's for radio and magnetic interference. So it's got a magnetic plate already built into it to avoid the motor noise that might normally come through as magnetic noise and so on. And we also have another special little trick we're going to incorporate into our system with a levitating ping pong ball that I think will wait till next week to present that along with this system that'll be working by then. So, and of course we have the copper cups, which will be nano coated, and part of that system to work with different ways to either cover or not cover the spheres, which can be we'll have GANs able to put in and out of these spheres with a particular way we have of setting up to be able to do that. So just to say, we're in a way hot on your trail, trying to come up with something that can help resonate with the other reactor combinations around the world to try to get some action happening, basically some connecting forces with around the world to help bring this technology in a peaceful manner.
That's very nice, but you have to realize that you need to cascade this under one cover. You have, instead of having 4 separate cores, bring the cores under one cover, that the external magnetic fields of the environment do not interfere. In a way, by putting a cascade on it, making it a spaceship, you give the possibility of individual identity to the system. You create a condition that you create a mono-atmospheric condition like a space, that the fields within the matter and the plasma you create dictate their individuality. The way you have the 4 cups on the ping pong balls is very nice, but now you have the environment magnetic field which will interfere once the fields are outside the copper containers. If you can make a dome which allows the fields to what do you call it, plasmatic field strength, then you will see the next step up. This goes back again to what we said. We start with showing how to produce the GANs. Then we put the GANs in different conditions. We run the gas and the GAN system together. And then we start running motors. And now we start bringing everything together in a different way. A bit bigger, a bit bigger. It's got to cover all 4 of them. It's a very nice bird on the top. But you got...
Okay,
you
well,
have to bring the 4 together, and by nano, let me explain as usual. Let's add to the knowledge.
is it still
By
going?
nano coating the environment around the 4 reactors, you literally create upper atmosphere condition barrier limitation for the fields, for the environment to be able to sustain life. And to sustain life or sustain fields, you have to create a confinement. With putting a confinement on it, you create the initial boundary, and then the reactors should do the rest in creating the monoplasmatic free plasma in the center. The reason we chose copper from the beginning is because the tissue muscle cells of the human being sits at the highest level to the level of the copper. So the monomagnetic plasmatic gravitational field, magnetical field which you create as a free plasma will allow the existence of man within these confinements. If you put another creature in the cover, under the cover of this reactor, they will 100% will die. You got to understand how we brought you to this, and I explained this in a couple of past workshops. CO2 comes from the air, copper oxide comes from the land. Look at the structure of your amino acid. We put the maximum with a minimum. And if you go back in the early talks, the workshops, I explain the connection of oxygen as a central gravitational magnetic field in the atmospheric condition of this earth as a connection line. Now you understand why this system, once it flies, yes, that's exactly how you're gonna make it. It's irrelevant what material you put on the dome, inside that dome. It's important that underneath the dome, and the dome is monomagnetically, like a nano layer, is coated, that is conditioned to the condition of the earth.
Mr. Kesh, this little unit is another project we're working on here. My idea was to have 4 miniature nano reactors, and they're actually replaceable. You can fill them with GANs, and there's a little plug in there. They insert into place. This is 4. It could also be 3 just as easily. And the idea is to run it all off of one computer fan. I've removed all the fan blades off this computer fan, and I can run a belt drive on that hub now and actually make all 4 reactors rotate with one drive. Haven't quite got it perfected yet, but it's very close to that.
This is what Marco has done.
And then the whole thing could be run on a 9-volt battery that's self-contained. You have only one magnetic field instead of 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever. There's also a central place where another reactor can be in the center. So the whole thing is one self-contained, almost wrist-sized. It's almost a wrist reactor. That would be the idea, is to micro-size them into a wrist reactor. Why not have a protective field that could be actually built into a wrist watch type structure?
There are a couple of things I see, a couple of things I have to say while you're, I see your watch. We see the fingers, very nice watch. There are a couple of things I have to explain. First of all, in the new setup which Marco is setting, the small reactor cores are powered separately. Altogether, the bigger motors are powered separately, and the top core is powered separately. So we have a control, 3 power supply control. There is a question. It says, do we need a vacuum condition? No. It's by Bernard Langlois. Langlois, if I spell his name right. It says, do we need a vacuum condition? No. We don't need a vacuum condition because now in these reactors, flight is on gravitational magnetic field of 1G. Means there is no need to go for a space test and see if your body can stand G changes. The environment within the cascade, within the environment of the what I call the a flying saucer, is on 1G level. I explain in the future how this has happened. This is a natural process, and we have dictated it with the coating of the copper. In the coming time, you will realize why copper was used from the beginning. This is with a what you call boundary structure of the plasmatic magnetic field of the amino acid of the man in conjunction with the elements of the planet. And in a very short test, what you're going to actually feel is, in some cases, as you move to the boundary, outer boundary of the plate, you feel like going up a Himalaya. The fields will reduce slightly. And in certain positions, you feel you're under a lot of water, as I call G increases. These conditions will live in these reactors, exist because you create a boundary that within these two boundaries you have normal pressure condition. These setups in the future will become a beautiful testing place for athletes. I was explaining to Marco this week. Unknown to a lot of people, Keshe Foundation has been very active in the sports scene in the background. We have been involved with sports people in supporting them from injuries, and it's been one of the backbones of few rapid understanding of the technology in effect of the human performance. This has happened to us because of the connections and the people we've been involved with. So we don't call it performance enhancement, but we call it recovery positioning, where athletes, instead of spending 6 months in recovery, within 3 to 5 days they achieve the same recovery. This has been done on a very correct basis on the supervision of doctors, and we've seen the results. So you can create a condition of high altitude in these reactors, in the environment of these sealed machines, for the athletes who want to do, what do you call it, you actually can build like a football pitch and put your footballers in there to play football. As this summer, this year, they went to, what do you call it, for a World Cup at a high altitude. You can create full environments like this for them to test and play and see how, and they get used and up to it. The strange thing is, a lot of you might laugh, but in the coming time you will see. Sports or showing of the strength of physicality and mental tests like chess is one of the most common things in the space. So man will be introduced to new ways of sports. And then you will understand how beautiful these things come for you to do. How you can use this. This will give you the condition of the freedom of use of intellect. You got to realize something very strange to you as human beings. When you do not plan killing and you do not plan to destroy and you do not do what man has done for centuries, you have plenty of free time on your hand to enjoy life. And part of it is how to interact and how to enjoy. Because everything you need is at hand. You just add to the knowledge and there is no pressure as it is now to survive. This is the change. And this is what you will see more and more, what we call leisure time, but in a correct way. No more cheating to enhance with, what do you call it, with chemicals. You can enhance much easier with the plasma, because it's direct. There is a paper to be published most probably before next week, when we talk again. This is done by Guy, who's a Belgian scientist. The Keshe Foundation paid for this research about 2-3 years ago in the condition of the growth of the seed. And I asked the gentleman to be present today that he could explain, but maybe next week he'll be with us. He has used and consumed GANs himself as a scientist to enhance his psychological and his emotional performance. And he's made some comments in the paper he's published. The paper will be published by the Keshe Foundation. It is a scientific paper written by a scientist who's done nearly a year of research on development of the seed. All the pictures of the seed he's grown will be available, and one of the, what do you call it, backbone of our research came through these developments in certain directions. And what do you call it, the Keshe Foundation team in the background has already worked on the paper. It should be ready to be released this week on the shop section of the foundation. This gives a lot of insight in a very simple way. Independent research done. This scientist has worked and has been working as, or in collaboration with a scientist at Leuven University. He's an educated, highly educated scientist in psychology of the animals and the behavior of their food. And he will explain this to you. Foundation has done a lot of research in the background with different scientists over years. And this paper is now, it's the right time for it to be released, and it's been done. And then the scientist who's done the research will explain to you how it's done, and he will be part of, he is part of the Keshe Foundation Agriculture. So you will understand more the effect of the food as a GANs in the space, in the behavior of the man. You lot are very quick to make things, huh? I can see the animation. You see the sphere with the core in the middle. Do you see it? You know, Marco, do you see this? No, renew your live stream.
Yes, Mr. Keshe, this is a animation based on what was said in the 7th Spanish workshop.
Ah, yeah, okay. Now if you, this is what it is, but if you put a cup on it, you got the base and you put, that's a cap on the top. In this process, this is part of the teaching of the last workshop, last Tuesday with the Spanish. You release the magnetic fields from the center core. Now in the setup we showed with Marco, that center core which is rotating, now is the free plasma which we've seen and we measured at 129 Tesla. By putting the cap on it, and it depends, as I explained in the cup, you can rub the nanomaterial with a different strength, with different pressure. Then you can produce different materials within the cap. And this job with changing, with pushing the different, or rubbing different layers of nanomaterial to produce different materials, in the reactor which Marco has set up, is done by the variation in the plasmatic magnetic field of the small cores when we move it in the boundary. So there is no difference. This is a static condition, that is a dynamic three-dimensional with a plasmatic. This is the structure of the cup. As you look at it, you have, if you turn this upside down, then you keep an opening to it. The fields which come through the bottom up is literally the cup upside down. Those are the fields that I explained in the Spanish session, that they become part of what you need in the environment you are, that you are fed. This principle of receiving is very much done by all our Keshe Foundation volunteers unknowingly in the health section. In the health section, when we provide the drinking cups, we always ask them to hold the cup when you are breathing, not when you're drinking. Because through that, they receive what they need, because the body shows the limit what is short of. The boundary of the nano coating becomes the skin of the man, becomes the aura of the man. The cups which we have provided for the health is one of the most sophisticated, simplest technologies man could ever lay a hand on. Here, with a dome, you provide a condition nano-coated. There in the reactors which you've seen with Marco said, that is a free plasma condition, but conditioned by the plasma of the reactors. In our health system, the nano coating is the skin of the man. The nano coating is your skin, because what we call aura coming from the body shows the weaknesses and what is needed. And what is needed is dictated in the air which you breathe from the cup. It stays in the memory of the cup when you drink the water. So you tell the cup what you're short of, and the cup gives you what you need. Now maybe you understand part of the mystery of the health system. The health system will be fully developed in the next 2 to 3 months in Italy. And then it will be handed over to our Chinese section for mass production. I have seen in the background in past few weeks a lot of direct collaboration. Even yesterday in the plasma section, I've seen that Sohail has opened a lab in China to public, that people can see what they've done, what they're developing. This is how open the technology which will stay. And I said before, Sohail is a gift which has come to the foundation, and he works on the same ethos as me. Total openness, nothing held back. This is how it should be and how it will stay. You have seen for the first time the new CO2 kit in the on the link, and you see the new health pad, which is going to be released by the end of this month by the, what do you call it, the Keshe Foundation group in China. Is it possible, Rick, to put the link on what Sohail has shown in the workshop you did yesterday? Elia has it. When you show, he shows the CO2 kit and the new health pad. If you can put it on the live stream. Yes. Can you put both of them on? Because these are the new commercialized things which will be, it will be released next few days. That you can purchase through the Keshe Foundation once we get a clearance from Sohail that is ready to do it. There is going to be a small There's a small batch made for the beginning, which we will cover, and then there will be a delay of 3 to 4 weeks because of the Chinese New Year and the mass orders. So they have foreseen this. In fact, what they have to do is they know what they are doing. You see the new CO2 kit and the new, what I call the paint pad. There are other things which is getting developed in the background, and I see different people around the cash managers around the world are in touch with Sohail, and they give their ideas of what they think they want or what they need to be done, and this will be followed as much as can be done.
My video my audio wasn't on in live stream, and I've been talking here. I meant to say that this video that you see called CO2 Capture Kit is from the folks in Canada. Is Kevin Blundell is actually speaking now, and he's describing some of the aspects of things, and people can go to Quantum Energy Canada. That's Quantum Energy Canada in YouTube, and that channel has a number of videos. It's called Maggrav Canada now, and they've changed their name recently, and they'll be distributing CO2 kits and energy kits and various products that come up in the next while from the Keshe Foundation. And it's interesting. They're also taking distributors. If people want to become a distributor and get into that side of the action, they can get a hold of Kevin Blundell from this site and from his videos. There's various links to get a hold of him and see if you can fit into the network somehow. I think he has over 70 distributors ready to go with all these kits, and I believe they'll be available in early February. That's the way I understand it.
Can you put the link on the live stream, please, to Maghreb Canada, please?
Right. Okay. Just a second here.
And I think somewhere when you do the live stream, the 2 links at the bottom, or we have to put these 2 links on the forum of the foundation.
Right. Yeah.
And that.
They're just kind of getting organized, so we have to give them a bit of a break. But they have a new site, I believe. Let me see.
Can we look at the video of your workshop yesterday with Sohail in showing the new what do you call it?
Sure. Just a second here. There's this is the Maggrav Canada website, and
Sandor has already posted it. Can you show the video?
Okay. Yeah. Sandor has posted it
on the live stream.
Oh, okay. I don't know what video that is, and it's on my other computer. I can't get it easily.
Elia has it. Elia can put it on the chat line, the Skype.
Is that that's an actual video? Okay.
It's actually on your YouTube. It's on your own YouTube
Right.
channel.
Okay. I can get that up. Let me do that instead.
Because I watched it last night on your YouTube channel.
Right. Okay. Just a second here. Get that organized.
And how long does it take? 20 minutes?
About an hour.
Okay, let's get the.
While you're doing that, Harold Lehman says, in my setup, the copper nano coating keeps wearing off. So I have to keep replacing the copper nano coated plate. This concerns me for the new sets which are going to be set out. You see it now. The plates have been coated with silicon. That this process does not happen because it's not a chemical reaction, it's a magnetic gravitational field reaction. This was, I think, one of the solutions. Can you put a voice on the video?
Sure. This is
This is Sohail from China.
0.15. It's about 10.
May I ask you a stupid question?
Yeah, please.
If you
Why
want to
you
go
don't
fast
bend the
forward to
top
show
corner
the end
back
products, and then he shows
and get
the
rid
pad.
of this holder?
Go forward, yeah, to show the end products because people can see the rest. This is the new kit, CO2 kit coming from Keshe Foundation, China, and the pads should be should be silicon coated for not losing the what do you call it, the coating. If you go fast forward somewhere on the table, we see the end product. Because there he is explaining. Just go back. No, go back. You're going to the end. There, should let it run there. Just, yeah, 8 minutes or something. This is the final CO2. What do you call it? Let it run. This is the new. This is the new CO2 kit capture, which is being distributed by the Keshe Foundation. It's frozen, Rick. You got to run the video. Oh yeah, okay. So this is the new CO2 kit. You don't need to touch anything. The holes on the top allows the air in to be captured. And you have the valve and you have the cup underneath. You see it in the background. And gray thing you see he's showing is the new mat, which is a pain relief mat, which will be distributed by the Keshe Foundation in China. The trading name used for the distribution is chosen by the Chinese, by Sohail, and you see in a very simple way the CO2 kit. This is the mat attached to the full belt. You can use it for anything. Yesterday I was talking to Dr. Elia. They have tested this on ladies in China for menstruation pain, and it's very effective. So they are looking at developing different kind of it. We originally wanted to produce something like 30 different versions, but Sohail made the decision that we'll make one and see what happens, how we go, and then we go. So now this is the first unit to be done. The new CO2 kit will be priced at 10 euro plus shipping and packaging, which is totally different from China. So this brings it at the reach of everyone to be able to afford it. The pain pads will be around, I think, 15 or 20 euro. You see in the background, this is the CO2 kit, you keep on seeing it in these flashes. If you can freeze it where it shows it, then you understand how it's on the corner. This is the new kit with the blue top. This is the new CO2 with a cup to collect. The whole structure will be the next step after this in March. I've been told by Sohail, or April, he will be able to do the power units, which is the batteries, battery charges on the batteries from the CO2. The same unit of, as you see with the CO2, is called, will be changed slightly. I don't know how they will do it, but it's most probably the same. Will be distributed as water purification systems and Ebola for E. coli bacteria. The whole structure is getting set in different ways, and we have already started talking and negotiating for water cleanup in different parts of the world using these systems, that people can add guns into the waters and to see how much purification we'll get, and then you most probably be able to receive the kits as a purification units around the world, done by Keshe Foundation in China. This is.
Here's a better picture of the CO2 kit from the folks. It's much more clear how it works.
The trading name of the Keshe Foundation has been chosen by China, by Sohail as Quantum, Omega Quantum. So we'll carry the logo of the Keshe Foundation around it when it's commercialized. The whole setup is very practical, rapid, and as I said, one of the things that people will start using this will be, I hope it doesn't become a jewelry box, because it's very, what I call sleek. It's the 21st century. The simplicity of it would allow people to use it, because as we said, in time there'll be adoption to this once we get the full authorization and confirmation from different authorities that the amino acid on top of the layer to be used as a food for consumption. These are all the things which we are doing. Once the layers are nano-coated and then covered with silicon, whatever is produced is pure. There is no contamination by any other material inside it. So it's a natural process. And one of the things which I should tell you, maybe is add to the knowledge, I explained it last week, the Keshe Foundation, on the support of the organizations we work with, have been licensed to run the first clinical trials in hospital for ILS in Europe. We've been given the authorization by the government last week, and this will be set up in the next coming days in Italy, and it'll be under full supervision of the medical teams by the government, and how we develop and what the results are. Secondly, we've been authorized for the testing of the systems for fibromyalgia. With this, we can report within 2 to 3 months the results immediately for commercialization. And we've been given a go-ahead for clinical tests for fibromyalgia by national government. The same has been issued. I've been told we'll release it directly for tests to start for back injuries, spinal damage injuries test in the systems which it can recover from any disc damage. And we have been told that we've been authorized to do clinical tests on the systems for Alzheimer's. So these are very rapid developments which are coming through different channels of the Keshe Foundation supporters and Keshe Foundations around the world. We have taken to clear position in respect to commercialization and research, and that is the space technology will stay with the main Keshe Foundation organization of Italy. We develop the space technology in full, and we share, as we've done, the knowledge with the rest of the governments and public. The research and development of the health side, at this moment with the scientists and the doctors and professors which work with us, will stay within the university and will be licensed for rapid testing within Eastern Europe nations. We already received the authorization. The commercialization of the materials will be done in Eastern Europe and China simultaneously as one organization. But this way allows us to cover rapidly the whole markets of need wherever it could be. The production of the cup of life will go to initially to China and then goes back to Eastern Europe. I know Sohail is advising everyone who wants to start a system, but you will. We have to see how we can and how he decides to do the support of all the different organizations around the world who want to produce things on their own. So, as I said, 2015 is a rapid change, and we see the change now with commercialization directly. The next step is, as I said, hopefully Sohail will commercialize the energy supplies as they are testing themselves. The change has come and will come very, very rapidly, and with what we have shown today in respect to the setup which Marco start testing, all what you have seen is for repairing the damages which is done on this planet in a physical matter condition. With a new system which will be shown today with Marco setting, we take this out of the dimension into a space level. So whoever is happy to work with either level, then it is comfortable for them to do, they can do so. In the coming time, I will show using Marco's system, if it works the way we expected, how you can create very much environment and conditions that you can produce all sorts of material directly from the plasma in these reactors, by showing how to extract conversion of the plasma to gravitational magnetic field of like water, that you convert the energy to mass or to matter. Is there any questions? Or are there any questions we can answer?
Thank you, Mr. Kesh. I know there is a couple of questions. Just wondering if there's any pertinent questions at the moment. Rick, do you have any questions? I know there is some.
What we're gonna do is that all the plates are getting coated. One of my ideas has been, maybe in the next generation of these systems, that the plates sit in a separate compartment. They do not need to be in touch with, because they create the environment. I've seen in some of the chat rooms, they've done some tests, they see nickel CO3 test done by the nuclear center, we see CaCO3 test done, depends which part of the material you use to test. If you use the GaNs on the upper levels, you will see CO2 GaNs. If you use materials which look like GaNs but they're in a solid state, you see whitish, and some are nickel and some are what you call calcium. It's very much like a bone structure flakes. The condition for creation of nickel CO3 or calcium CO3, it comes usually in our observation when the GaNs material is high in level in the container, that the two plates become connected to each other through plasmatic gravitational magnetic field. So the matter plasmatic field of the what you call nickel or calcium is created. The calcium in the CaCO3 comes from the water which you use. If you use sterilized water, you will not see any calcium. And when you use separate plates that they are not in touch with the water, they just create the fields, you will not get the nickel as well. So in a way, in the containers which is produced by the foundation, and Sohail is doing them by spraying them with silicon, what do you call it, the spray or material. This should give you only, what do you call it, CO2. Secondly, if you look at the structure, is tapered in, which means the CO2, whatever is collected, goes into the funnel. So should not stay in touch with the plates. And this has been overridden by this way. It gives you that facility. The plates do not become catalytic situation by the plasmatic magnetic field.
Mr. Kesh, could the thing that we see there, the object, the CO2 kit, could it have pockets molded into it that would contain the plates and not in contact with the fluid? Would it still work through the wall of the plastic?
Yes.
Would we get more GANs collected if it was silicone sprayed rather than through the walls of the plastic, or would we get more with direct contact?
There are 2 or 3 points which is to consider. The rate of the production stays near the same or slightly less. But on the other hand, the major problem comes when a large quantity of these systems are used. Because if we deplete the CO2 too rapidly, we start other problems in the environment. I'm sure very soon governments will jump on the bandwagon, putting limitation and whatever they can, trying to stop people using this. But for the first, I presume, first 10 years, we have enough to be able to support the use. The the silicon coating or putting in a separate compartment will give you less CO2 in a slower, what do you call it, speed. But the plates stays intact, you don't need to do it. I asked Sohail to test this some time ago, to put it outside. And we know the results because I've done the test here myself in the labs in past 5 or 10 years. I know what the outcome is. So this all depends. This is a very big departure from the present chemical reaction. This is, you create gravitational magnetic field environment of the CO2 within and in conjunction with the salt and the water in the container. It's not just the plates. It's creating the condition. Plate on their own cannot do. When you add water and then when you add sodium to it, this gives you that condition that the gravitational magnetic plasmatic fields of CO2 is created. That it, in being a magnet, it extracts them from the environment, very much like a leaf. And then in that process, by extracting the carbon in conjunction with the oxygen in the air, certain number of nitrogen and hydrogens which are at the level of the connection and with the loss of the oxygen to CO2 allows you to create amino acid on the top layer. This is the process of the creation of life. The CO2, the environment you create in the CO2 box creates an environment, a magnetic field strength in the plasmatic level of CO2. It does not create a CO2 at the matter level, but it creates a plasmatic gravitational magnetic field equal to the strength of CO2. In creating this condition, the magnetic field pressure inside and gravitational magnetic field pressure inside the water tries to pull the carbon in line with oxygen. You have to understand the physiology. Carbon is 12, oxygen is 16, nitrogen is 14. So in creating gravitational magnetic fields of CO2, you create a condition that you try to absorb the C, which is a lower, and a higher oxygen, which is higher, into the container. So with it, in that extraction, the nitrogen, which is 14 in between, comes with it, and in conjunction, and in coming in touch with the release of the moisture, which carries the water in the air, which releases part of the hydrogen, you create the amino acid. And then, because it's locked into the carbon which is already going through, it gets pulled, and in a way the wall is the surface of the water. And then at that point manifests itself as an amino acid. This is how life originally started on this planet. It's a pure plasmatic gravitational magnetic field interaction and not chemical reaction. So if you change the water which you use in your container with different salinity and different composition of nanomaterials, you will get different proteins and conjunction and interaction with different materials, and then you start producing materials like a blood on the surface of the water. You create, but these are, don't forget, they are the original, which means they are untampered with, which means these are the essence of creation, original. And then if you add these amino acids to the reactors which Marco we showed in the set, then this is a pure entity integration of the man. And then this is what we call a balance, because at that level, when the amino acids connected to the physicality of the earth or to the matter state, which then accepts intelligence of replication because of the plasmatic interaction with the neighbors, starts creation of life. And that's a life at pure state of collaboration and at peace. And when you add this into the cores of the reactors, as I explained with Marcos, then you control the mind of the man. And as we said, peace on you. You will receive balance fields, and when you receive balance field, in conjunction with another 2-3 elements and conditions, you can enforce man to forget his animal behavior. Because you have to have enough in your reactors to be able to feed the man through the same energy level in a gravitational magnetic field. Then when the man receives enough, which is at peace, that level, what you transfer from the free plasma, is at the level of the emotional level, strength of the body of the man, because it's the pure original protein. Then man receives a satisfaction. It's like you're looking for love all your life, and then when you find love, that's it. You stop. And this, because it is a pure condition, you achieve peace. Because man will find balance within his emotional part, and then transfers to physicality. Then there comes a question of the interaction between the emotional part and the soul of the man, which time you have to understand the connection.
Mr. Kesh, is there any connection with what you just said with what's called stem cells in some of the biological science today?
What is a stem cell? A stem cell is the origin.
Okay.
But it's more purified, but still, because of its physicality, has a matter connection.
So what you're speaking of would be before the stem cell, is that correct?
Origin of the creation, yeah. For the first time, man understands how he's been produced and how. And because of this, you cannot add to this to create, what do you call it, aggression and war and psychological control. It's impossible, because it's not within the realms of physicality, it's in realms of the emotion, and emotion stays pure because it's in touch and it's part of interaction with the soul of the man. That's why I said, and if you go back to my original writings, I said no soul will be harmed through this technology. This is the promise we give, and we keep to our promise because we understand the principle.
Could you explain that again in a slightly different way? This is a big concept, and I know a lot of people they have this fear that they'll have to be controlled. Everybody will have to be controlled in the future, but we have this other concept of, I mean, if you're in an environment that feels naturally loving and giving, then there's no need for control in that environment, in a sense. So could you
Put it this way,
explain
let me,
how
let me
that
explain
differently?
to you. Let me explain
Okay.
to you. When you run these systems, to go back to to what we call to enforce peace, you go back to the position of natural state of receiving unconditionally without the need to give. And in this process, the man will understand there is no control and there is no way you can control. Mind control comes through the control of the physicality part of the man, not through the emotion. But man can control his emotion through the direction of the operation of the physicality. This is a very fine line and it has to be understood fully. There is no control. I put it to you in one very simple way. If there was such a control, because now you are connected to the emotional part and the physical part, now you understand through your system, the creator would have done so that there would have been so much mayhem on this planet. Even though we know how to do it. This is part of the evolution, understanding the process of interaction. The center core sits as pure, only receives what it needs. And when you put salt in a pot, it doesn't stay in one place. It gets mixed and equal, and then it comes back to neutral condition. Because it spreads out. There is no way you can use this technology for mind control. Through thoughts and emotion, you can control physicality, but you cannot control the emotion. But the emotion is a reflection and the reaction into physicality. If I cage you and put you in prison, then I can control your physical condition. But I cannot control what's going on in your head. I cannot dictate how you think and what you got to do. We've seen solitary confinement for 20, 30 years with some of the world leaders which have been in power. We saw it with this beautiful soul of Mandela. You can change the physicality, but when the soul does not allow the trigger to be shot, it will not be shot. The soul controls the emotion, and the soul has every say in the direction of the emotion. But the emotion, when it sends the direction and the information to physicality, it has a say in what physicality can do, but you have to realize that physical part of the human brain has no data control. Unless it becomes reflex. Reflex is totally different. Arm cannot decide I'm going to shoot, arm cannot decide I'm going to hit somebody. to do the action has to come from the emotional part and has to have a reason for it. And when you take the reason of aggression away, there is no reason for aggression. Any other question?
Oh, I did post a lot there. Let's go from the beginning, shall we? So this is in chronological order that the questions were in the live stream. They are the magrevs of one reactor enough to create heat?
Yes, depends what you put in front of it. This is, I was explaining yesterday.
Right.
And I explained this, you've seen it in the plate which Armand understood and went downstairs and put out on the set. Depends where you position yourself and what you make the position of the plate, the blue plate, and what you make it of. It's very much, I was explaining, is like you are in a room, beautiful clear room, and then suddenly outside environment changes, and then you start seeing water moisture on the glass. And you have all the walls around you and you see no moisture on it. Because of the very much what I explained, how you rub the nano layers on your nano coating. Where the condition of the glass is thin and the transfer of energy is direct, you get the heat of the outside, the warmth of the inside, the cold of the outside, and then the vapor manifests itself as a matter, physical, tangible matter, even though you are breathing it yourself in. So you decide in which side and where, how you want to see. You can create your nano layers that the fields from the center core manifest itself as a heat in that given position. This is what I explained in the Spanish session. When they asked for the oasis, what about the oasis system? Oasis system, if you look, as I explained, try to go over it very quickly, is management of the use of the energy released by the central plasma. What does this mean? You don't need the light all the time during the day, 24 hours a day. So in that period, when there is no need for light, or when you go to sleep, you divert the energy into, like let's say the glass, to absorb or to convert or to change the moisture of the environment around you into the water, that you collect water for the time you're awake. During the morning or whatever you wake up, you want to cook or warm the water, you don't need to create or use the energy for light and for water production. So you convert or divert the energy to a plate, to a heating system. So now you have the light, you have the water, you have the heat. Then you want, let's say during the disaster time, there are also some infections. If you understood the plasmatic condition which we showed on the Marco set, every disease has a gravitational magnetic field boundary strength. Go back to the teachings of Dr. Elia and homeopathy. You add to the water the energy opposite to the disease. No bacteria, no flu. So now you got your medicine. At the same time, you can allow a certain magnetic fields as a base to create a very soft shelter plasmatic environment around your reactor, which you put in the center of the room. Then you have your shielding. Doesn't matter what a storm goes on, if you have a thin layer, the wind cannot come through, that has served the purpose. Soft enough to be able to walk through, hard enough not to allow cold and wind, which is part of the magnetic field, gravitational pressure, and changes to penetrate. You have your Oasis system. Total cost, less than $5. It's not that you stand and you see a system producing. It's the management of energy. This is what's called the Oasis system. The whole problem was and has been the production of energy at no cost. And the reason we discussed the Oasis system, because the Spanish group showed that they have developed a 28-piece nano energy system, which they've been lighting LED light. I think he said for 4 months. I think it's Eric Clausen who's done that. I can't remember who showed it. And then you, at the time when you don't need a light, they said they can charge a battery with it. Connect, instead of charging a battery, to a plate which allows you the transformation of the moisture to water in the air. This is the original Oasis project which was put out by the foundation years ago. It says creating a proper place of comfort and dignity for everyone. When you have water, when you have food, and if there are no food, you can create the energetic magnetic fields of every material you need to survive within the water. This is the energy system, which is made by the Spanish group. So the problem has been to achieve energy or be able to create energy through conversion of plasma. And now what we taught over past years, we see the fruit of it. More people are understanding and adding to change of the knowledge into physical entity as the light we see today. Next question.
Okay, the next question is all CO2 GANs filled or mix of GANs in the reactors?
Pardon? Can you repeat?
Is the reactors filled with CO2 GANs or a mix of GANs?
We'll try a mix of gases. We have, for specific conditions, I hope, as I said, we'll come to an arrangement with the Japanese government. Now we have signed documents with them. We have access to a specific material which is in their possession in the long run and becomes their national asset. That by filling the reactors with these new materials, we will be able to produce mono gravitational magnetic fields, which is in line with the rest of the gravitational magnetic fields in the universe. Then the speed of travel in space becomes 0 time. This needs a development. You can already do it in different way, it's been done in different way, but the purest form sits with the Japanese through the Fukushima disaster. You can produce it, but you cannot reach the purity which is with the Japanese. It can be done, it happens naturally all the time in the universe, but this is a shortcut without putting anybody in danger at the same time solving a problem. Pardon?
Can we not use the water or even the air that is coming from that disaster in other places in the world? As you said before, the Fukushima disaster is reached around the world.
Let me explain to you. In a way, yes. In a way, this is what I was explaining to some of my colleagues in the past. Nations like Japan, nations like Iran, United States and China in so many ways, will not become energy suppliers, but they become the providers of the new style of energy. Transportation will not be done the way as super tankers. Transportation will be done for receiving new and different type of energy through transmutation of the matter. You don't do teletransport, but you do exactly what you do with the CO2. You extract it in the direction of the scent. The changes are very huge. The changes are beyond dimension. Now that we have opened it up, as I explained to you before, some times ago, the foundation is involved in different directions, aspects of technology with different nations and different parameters. There is a grant given for $11 billion multi-train within Central South Africa to connect 6 or 7 nations together by railway. I explained to the people from the government who approached us if we can put a solution forward. I said it can be done on the back of the trees with a small reactor. You don't need to cut through the mountains. You just get up and land in different positions as you need. You call them a station, that people to know where to come to. The changes through this technology in underdeveloped nations will be much, much faster than developed nations. We don't have high towers and telephone cables over the roads in Africa and in South America. So the use of what we call crafts on a everyday commercial level will be much easier in Africa and South America because there are no these kind of restrictions, as the cables and the bridges will be more rapid than in the Western developed countries.
And also the latest, just want to say the latest Keshe Foundation that wants to start up is in Kenya.
We have one in Nigeria. There are 102 Keshe Foundation groups in different shape or form around the world. I've seen Taiwan requesting for development and submission to become official Keshe Foundation. Chinese paper has been sitting with Dr. Chu for some time, which we authorize and be granted very soon to go ahead now that Sohail and Dr. Chu can work together. It has to become one organization. That's what we said. We'll transfer the peace connection through the Keshe Foundations, not through governments or United Nations or religious organizations. All three have failed miserably. We don't wait for acceptance of who can approve. There is no peer review. You peer review, you understand, you made the reactor, so is correct. As I said, a lot of people talked about the peer reviewing the CO2 paper. My peer review, my CO2 paper has been previewed by millions who made the gases and the CO2 kits. So we don't need a man who's been paid to talk as a voice box for some pressure groups to make a decision. You have peer reviewed it, you have decided, you made it and it works, and you can see it, you can test it. So it's been peer reviewed. At the same time, as I said, we gave a chance 2 years ago to governments to come to agreement. It was too much to do. Now people will do it. Once we show the flight system in
it's peer reviewed by the actual peers and not by some talking box.
In a way, the peer reviewing is done by you lot.
That's right. Actual peers.
Peers. Peer reviewing goes by the level of intelligence. So if the beauty of this technology is that it's getting understood, practiced, and worked and developed by the man on the street, not by universities and the professors. So they have lost their position. They have gone done wrong enough to themselves, but they give the basic education and it will be done. And it has to be done that way. If you want to develop, extract water from the system, now we have the real system which can show you how it's done. But one thing all of you have to remember, and I'm sure in the very near future you will show us. To create gold, you have to use gravitational magnetic field of the gold. To extract water, you have to do the same. It will not happen, but you have to understand how to do it, and the way has to be done the correct way. Cleaning up the mess in the oceans with the chemicals which are in it, it'll become child's job very soon. Whatever man has done wrong to this planet, within the next 2 to 5 years will be put right. But the problem is that this damage has been so slow over time that with the habit of this planet, everything has mutated around it. Can we mutate backwards? In the paper which is going to be released on the agriculture, a guy has shown it happens to the seed. It goes back to its root. I was looking at some of the pictures to be released. You will see it. The wheat becomes like grass. So, what's his name? Monsanto. Monsanto, hard work to control, is actually down the chute, is finished. Because you all know what to do it. And secondly, my life is not in danger anymore because you all done it. It's on the picture. Chinese have done it. Now we have the press release, what they call it, paper release with it. So anyone who has a problem with Monsanto, with the control of the GM seeds, just add some cans, CO2. The duration, the time, this will be part of the first researchers with the university will release. I have sanctioned through our what we call spin-offs, the production of protein, the test on CO2 level of applications for agriculture will receive finances for a spin-off immediately for research. Literally the first weeks we open, these will take priority in development and research by the people who understand it. And we collaborate with other universities to achieve this. Next question.
I just have just one question I seen in the live stream at the moment, and I know it's on one particular person's mind in our groups, and I'm sure you've seen and heard of him before. His name starts with an L, but it's not him who's asking this question. But the question is, how do we know the gravitational magnetic fields of the materials?
We are developing a system for this. I explained to Sohail in China how to measure it if he can achieve it. Otherwise, it will be done in Albania through the Keshe Foundation Albania. We are developing a system computerized. Just give us time, we will release it to you. Because I do it different way. I've done it for years, different way, because I know a little bit more than you do as humans, put it that way, how to do it. And I was showing this in a very simple way yesterday to Arman and Marco. How it's done, how I do it. It's in my lab. I know I have created on a flat plate the structure of this planet. So for me, it's people walking, they don't see, they don't understand. But to me, it has a lot of meaning of what it does, and it's 100% correct. This need remodification of system from matter, what you call resonance and frequencies, to magnetic flow in both direction, magnetically and gravitationally. For those who don't know and understand, let me explain this in a short way. When we speak about a magnetic field, it's just flow of a field. When we speak about magnetical, is the repulsion of the two similar fields, And when we talk about gravitational, is attraction of the similar fields. So we don't use magnetic field as is commonly used. Magnetical, gravitational means entity of a plasma, or what we call magra. This is, we chose the magnetical to show a separation that the fields are created by the interaction of two similar field forces, or what we call repulsion forces. Because the attraction forces possess both elements and not two.
Sorry, Mr. Keshe, we're just getting some break up there.
We've just had some trouble with the Skype call just crashed, so I need to. I'm going to restart the live stream as well.
So let's continue on where we were, Rick, and I think you were about to talk about Eric's picture.
Right. Okay. Let me bring that up again.
I got a quick question, which was
well,
on the chat.
Just wait, Lookman.
Yeah, we need to bring up Eric's question here, which we've had the picture up for a while, and Eric's wanted to ask this question for the whole workshop here. So, or wanted to present it. It's what you see in the live stream there now is just the figure 8 twisted nano-coated wire. But what's special is the coating is very shiny or semi-gloss kind of coating on it, rather than the dull black that's usually seen with the nano-coated copper. So Eric was, I think he can explain perhaps a bit about that, or maybe he wanted me to say something about that. Let me see if I can find the question again here. Okay. So Eric mentions if this kind of nano coating, the gloss black, if it reflects forces, and he has the idea that the dull coating, the usual nano coating that you wouldn't touch normally, would be absorbing, whereas the black would be reflecting from the polishing that's done, the rubbing essentially action.
Okay.
Like I would suggest maybe that the difference between SP2 and SP3 layers that might be created due to this process. What would you say?
Try to make a ring and nano coat it, and then try to do the twinity. If you look, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You have 7 twinity magnetic field levels, which compresses the fields according to the level of the total strength. This is why you see the shine, or you see the compactness. It's the trick into the twisting, the infinity. If you look, you have to count the loop back to you is just what you call in twisted wires. But if you go from one end, you're back in the loop 2, loop 3, loop 4, loop 5, loop 6, loop 7. So you created a different condition, that condition, due the compression of the total from both end of the wire, it has created new environment which allows it to be or manifest itself the way it does. You have created a magnetic, plasmatic, gravitational field pressure. What I do with my finger, you've done it with a field. That's why it's shiny. It's not just you twist it and it happens. Is you have changed the condition. You have put, actually the center of this loop sits in the center loop, in this between 7 and a 6, 3 and a 4. So the gain goes back in so many ways. This is like hydrogen, nitrogen and other things put next to each other, creating a new cell It's not just because you
So
put a
just a
wire.
simple cross.
It's a loop.
Simple
It's a
cross
double
is better.
loop. Yeah, it's a twinity. It's the same. Once you cross the wire, understand
Yeah.
the principle. Once you cross the wire across, you have dictated the condition of the full field transfer and the line of motion of the fields.
Yes.
So the left loop becomes North Pole, South Pole, the right loop becomes South Pole, North Pole. You create a twinity, so you enforce the condition. This is how passive the knowledge has become. One end, one twist to the next is one plasmatic magnetic field. And the north of this magnetic field sits in the middle of the loop, not on the point of contact. The point of contact shows the direction of the flow from the North Pole to the South Pole or South Pole to the North Pole. This is what Einstein called the funny things because he couldn't understand it. In gravity, in the plasmatic condition like a proton and electron, the gap dictates the polarity and the strength of each plasma, as we explained before. Now, by you twisting one field to another and understanding the nano coating is superconductive condition of the transfer of fields, then you have dictated the direction of motion of the field. So you have created a magnetic gravitational compression. This is what is known as a compression technology in plasma technology. Because now you have dictated, it's conditioned, it cannot go anywhere else. The fields have to flow through the nano layer, and as they go to one to the other and they come back again from back to the other one, they are continuously pressurizing and holding on. Try to untwist the wire and see what happens. It will hold because the condition has already been held.
So this is the wire.
Yeah.
But in last workshop on the 45th, you talked about joining the reactors with a plastic tube, or it didn't matter, as long as it's coated. So this is exactly what I was envisioning, to have that north pole attached to the south pole, and then the north pole of the other one attached to the south pole, the other one, in a figure 8 shape, in an infinity
Yes.
loop.
That's why the infinity sign. That's why in Chinese 8, Chinese understood the concept, but somewhere they lost the principle. The figure 8 is the sign of stability of the fields and sharing. And when you compress it together it becomes the yin and yang, as you see in their figuring. One field, what it loses.
So if we had the reactors, let's say with Armin.
Pardon?
Sorry, the delay. If we had the reactors, let's say the ones that we show in the beginning here with Armin, under a nano-coated dome, let's say, or cup, and also include the balancing aspect with the infinity loop, let's say in a plastic tube, coated plastic tube, then you enforce the condition twice. Is that right?
You condition the force indefinitely.
So that means that if you're enforcing it indefinitely, then that means that you're not dependent on the local environment. You're dependent on the environment beyond the local environment.
No, the local environment takes priority. That's why you have a mass and you have a weight. You add to the mass of the plasma, free plasma, continuously. Then you have to control how much you give. Don't forget, in these reactors you have a continuous supply of fields from the gas material into the environment of the plasma. You can't stop.
And it's the field interaction that creates the matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not the consumption of the GANs, which was another question that Harold had before the breakup, which was when producing materials, will the GANs in the reactors be consumed while producing the material? We had said
You
no.
But it might be converted,
field.
though, would it not? The GANs could be
You
converted to a different type of GANs or into the
No,
matter?
yes, you can. If you add to his mass, yes, you can. But the way you got to realize what this setup is. The setup which we see with Marcos with the white plate
You mean
doesn't
Armand?
matter. Yes, yeah. You call it Armand because Armand brought the things. Marcos put it together because Armand is putting another one together himself with a.
Oh, I
copper.
see. Okay.
Yeah. So I call it Marco
I
because
understand.
Marco is setting it up. The setup which Marco has put together, it is energy, it's food, it's matter, it's everything which man's need production unit. Now you have a confinement, you decide what you want and how you have to achieve it. Up to now you played,
There's
it was
also
just
another
like,
question
yeah, up to
regarding
now.
that
Up to now, we brought pieces together. You know, it's like when you have an engine, you make your pistons, you bring springs, you bring the valves, you bring everything together, and then you make an engine. Up to now, we have made the engine. Now, with putting in the dome, we have made a car. Do you want to be a racing car or do you want to be a tractor? It just depends how we put what we put on it. Do you want it to be a cart or do you want it to be a boat? It's just now the caging which gives a different performance, but the essential thing is the whole thing is put together. Now you have all the pieces of jigsaw. If you change the position of it, you get a racing car. Or let's say you get copper. If you change another position and strength of the reactor, you want a donkey's rate, you get a donkey feeling. So it's in your hand. You've been given the essence of the creation. What you get out of it, what you do with it, how you affect it, is how you position, what you strengthen, how you strengthen, in what position you put different combinations. From today, every man can make as much gold as they like from a plasma, not looking for matter. This is exactly what happens, as I said before, with the sun. You place your reactor in the right position, you get a composite like Earth. We call it a protein, so you don't need to go and get a cow. You position your reactor in a position that it gives you protein, as you've seen with the water. You move it backwards, you only want oxygen, so you get oxygen. You want aluminium. This setup, what you see, is sacrosanct and is the common denominator in all the universal system in travel in space. As I said, we give man the gift that when he goes into space is equal with others, he will not be abused. And this is a gift, if you understand it. And it's given to every man who can read, write, or understood this technology. There is no difference between Iran, Chinese, Americans, Nigerians, or Colombians. Keshe Foundation Cuba can do the same, because there are people setting up the Keshe Foundation Cuba. So nobody can abuse anymore. And the beauty of it is, all the resources, from now on, all the resources of the man is accessible by all men. So nobody can charge somebody too much. There is more gold in the oceans than is on the land. So you can all go and dig gold out of the sea. Because if you create the same gravitational magnetic field of the gold, which Eric Clausen has found out how to do it, he has the guns of it, then you don't need to go and risk your life and go into the mine and dig gold out. You go to you're near the ocean, you just put your system and you collect gold. Just sit there, it comes to you because you created the field of it. As I said, and I repeat again, we have opened the door and we enforce peace through making everything worth as you need it at the time you need it. You want to make palaces made of gold is important to you, build a system, go by the ocean, you can have tons of it. If you understand how to load.
Mr. Kesh, you mentioned or alluded to the sphere being the shape that's sort of the plasma, that plasmoid sphere, you might say, seems to be prevalent through the universe, the spherical shape. Well, I'm just looking yesterday. This thing came through for me. It's a artist concept through computer simulations where they use terabytes of information, all the latest information, to try to come up with the shape of a black hole. And they ended up with this very interesting shape that's very much like the reactors, I would think, and especially with the edges that where you've been registering the high magnetic spikes coming off is in that same sort of shape. So this is a concept they come up with for a movie, but they actually use so many resources coming up with it that it's probably the closest image they've come up with so far of what a black hole may look like. Could you comment a little bit about that, or is that...
This is a normal behavior of plasma. The reactors you have, the leakage comes at the equator level, because that's where is the balance and the weakest.
And also, most of the so-called saucer shapes are this way, are they not?
Let me explain something. This behavior, as you see that ring, look at the structure of the Saturn. All the gaseous plasmatic systems have this. This ring in the middle comes through the balance of the fields in line and in conjunction with the gravitational field internally and magnetical field externally. This is a point of the where the fields literally, if you call it, it's the best definition of it is the barrier. You know, you have a sound barrier and then you have the change. In the internal structure of the center of the core, there is a barrier, what we call plasmatic barrier. And in that barrier, what you get is distortion, and that distortion shows itself as a ring from outside. The same as if you read the paper I've written about the ring of Saturns. We see these with all the gaseous planets, because all the gaseous planets in the center initially are originally created by matter. They have a matter core, which through its gravitational magnetic field and position in the solar system has led to them to become layers of gases, and the interaction between the gravitational magnetic field of the center core and the layers leads to the creation of the ring of Saturn. This is I explained fully, and Dirk Lorenz has drawn the pictures for it. The same thing happens because the gaseous planets in essence are very similar to the plasma, with the difference that in the plasma you have principal matter, which is a compact energy fields, and in the gaseous planets you have the same compactness but as a matter state, because the planetary system starts with the mass of material coming back from the boundaries of the solar system, getting attracted back to the center, reach a point which they attract gases of the same strength. They create literally what you see in your CO2 box. In CO2 box, you create gravitational magnetic field of the CO2 and you extract CO2 from environment. At a certain position, the gravitational magnetic field of the mass of the entity, what we call like a small planet like Pluto, reaches gravitational magnetic field of helium Hydrogen first, and then helium. And then, because it has that gravitational magnetic field, they start extracting hydrogen, balanced plasmatic magnetic field, convert them into the gas state around them. And then they start building layers and layers. And as they come forward to the center, like the position of Earth, the monomaterial, due to the gravitational field of this Earth and the gravitational field, magnetic field of the Sun and gravitational magnetism of, let's say, Jupiter and Saturn, they start absorbing monomaterials. And then you get a construction of the solid state of the planets. And then they become from gas into matter. Same conversion as I said to you. Take your system by the sea and put gold in it, and you absorb all the gold. And that's why we see monomaterials on the surface, on the boundaries of the planet, on the solar system. And then as it comes forward, it becomes composite, and we see a structure of the materials, and then we see conversion of the matter in the plasmatic environment of the gas of the planet.
So
and composite.
Might we see something like we see on the live stream now, a central light you mentioned that might form? Would that perhaps look like that structure? Is that possible?
The light, the central light is the interaction of is what we call a plasmatic barrier inside the center. Because you reach a point that the fields coming from the North Pole to absorb to the South Pole reach imbalance in the field with the gravitational magnetic field in the central plasma. So it's hollow by the look, but it's in fact highly dense. And that's the interaction of the fields at that equator level. This is one of the characteristics of the gaseous, because gas is very similar in behavior as a plasma, but in the matter state. So we see the same rings in the ring of Saturn, the same position as we see with the plasma. This I have explained in what do you call it, book number 4. And Dirk Lorenz have drawn the pictures for it 4 or 5 years ago, but we haven't had a chance to publish the paper and the book.
So if you can create that in the lab in atmospheric conditions, that would be quite a breakthrough.
You already have it.
I mean, to see it as a light in the center, you know,
the
manifest.
129 plasmatic Tesla you detected or we saw comes from that ring.
Right. So the light action would be a way of training that or directing that so it interacts with the other field.
It's visualizing it. The light just visualizes it.
Right.
Because you got to realize in the lab, the detector was... the detector, totally by coincidence, was set in the direction as the other 2 sets of reactors which are behind it. So those reactors' gravitational magnetic field show the direction of the flow where they want the plasma to be emptied. And by total accident, the detector was placed there in that direction of flow. So as the field discharged to the other reactors, very much like the loop as we saw with Eric, the detector was on the way and detected it. You cannot produce 129 on its own and it'll going that way. It'll be spread equal. But because we had 2 reinforcing star formation behind it, they dictated direction of flow. Very much like Eric, the way he twisted wire, he dictated it. In that setup, we dictated about 2 enforced sets of the star formation with the gases in the background. And that's why it flew that way and why we saw it. And that's why you cannot see high flow in the present position of the reactor in the lab, on the live stream. Once we start, and if we can reset the whole system the way it is now, and then put the, what do you call it, the new reactors of Marco and Arman one behind each other towards it, you will see magics, and you try to get the world of science to explain it. Because now you dictate the position. Now it goes back, if you understand what it was sitting, the way the three sets were sitting, go back to pyramids of Egypt. Then you understand the power of the structure. The three were like, and they are, a copy of the pyramids. Each center plasma, because each one of them had a free plasma in the structure. The minute we added the fourth reactor into this middle structure, the 120 Tesla and the lift of the motions of the weight and everything else start manifesting itself. Go back onto the recordings, you understand. So if you look at it, if you understand it, the reactor set 1, which was hanging, the copper one, was just, even though small, was brought at the same height as the other two sets, more or less. We created the same condition as I've explained before, the effect of the pyramids. Look at the pyramids around the universe, you have 3 reactors in line, 3 pyramids in line. And then you will see the power of it.
Some pyramids have 4 sides. Would 4 reactors work? I've got one combination with 4. We're thinking of converting back to 3 instead.
The fourth one is your, once you put 3 in line, you have to have a fourth one. It's like a 4-star formation. This is a very advanced knowledge. The people who brought this knowledge to man at that time, they thought man was used as a toy to give knowledge he could not understand. Some did at that time. And they are the ones who constructed the structures. When you put 3 reactors together and a fourth one, as you see the free plasma, if you have a knowledge how to line the 4, or you put 1 off at the end of between the third and a free space, you dictate the direction of the flow to the creator. This technology was taught man a long time ago, and that's why there was peace. If you go back to the time of the Egyptians when they made the pyramids, there was a lot of nonsense that they used a slave. Now that they have found the transcripts and they've translated it to the language you can understand, there was not much difference in between the pay of the guy who was in charge and the man who was pushing the stone, because they understood it needs to be balance and equality. And they all lived in the same place together. So Egyptians who built the pyramids understood the full concept, and somehow down the line humanity or man's greed took over. This knowledge is not the first time, but now this time we're teaching the masses, you understand. You need, the minute you have the 3, there is a 4th one. You have to look in these structures. Even in Egypt there is a 4th pyramid. Man has not found it yet. They actually see it, but they don't understand it because it's in a relevant position.
I was actually talking about the 4 sides, like I would have 4 on the base rather than 3.
The 4th base is the standard. The 4th base is the standard. But look at the 3 structure, physical structure. When you put a 4 base, 1 top, you have a weaker structure than the 3.
That's right. The prime structure would be 3. That would be the first structure that's 3-dimensional, is a 3-dimensional pyramid from a 2-dimensional triangle.
The 3-dimensional pyramid, 3-side pyramid, the way you do it in your reactors, it is one of the most advanced ways of doing it. When you go to 4, you have losses, and these were what are called, let's say, 3rd-generation systems. But at the time when the knowledge was given to the man, they were very advanced, and they understood it. And if you find a 4th structure, you have 3 bases. 3 line and 4 reactor line systems are connected to the soul of the creator. And for man it's too far to understand at the moment.
could be
If you look
related
the
maybe
structure of,
to
if you look
see.
at the
Sorry.
structure of the human body, if you look at the structure of the human body, you see it.
Mentioned CH3 and CH4 might be sort of one way of looking at those structures. There's a big difference between the two, but there's only one atom difference, but it makes a big difference.
Look at the plasmatic structure of each and understand why CH3 is more towards color of orange reddish. Then you might be enlightened. But it's too early for man to understand, far too early. Next question.
As a force structure, you're talking about the Sphinx then, correct?
Good morning.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kesh. Rick, I did want to get to Ivan, and I know it's running a little bit later still. So could we do those that question from Ivan?
Have you got it in writing, or I want to
There's he sent a link here. Let me get the pictures lined up here for you, and we'll try to go through it as efficiently as possible. Where is it here? I'm trying to find the pictures. You had them in a different place. Did you send them to me, I think, Vince, or where was that link?
I sent them to your personal Skype.
Got it there, yep. Okay, here we go.
So just get that lined up. I just wanted to share my screen here because, of course, I have the pictures of the pyramid and the Sphinx up to do with the positioning of them.
Okay, well, I've got the video, the picture, first picture JPEG from Ivan up on the live stream. Should come through any second here. Yeah. Okay, so it's up now if you want to...
Ivan, are you going to talk, please? Hello, guys. Well, you need to turn your volume up a little bit.
Hello?
Yes,
hi, Ivan.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so these guns come out of the system that I use twisted nanowire. I connect it with a nanowire to the magnets. And the strange thing is, when I put it out, it was looking like this, like copper oxide. But in the next picture, from the next day in the morning, it became green. So it was very, very strange reaction. It's still the first one.
Wait. Are those plates? Yeah.
No, this is not plates. I have the system there also. I send the link to it.
And where are the magnets?
And this is the material in the next morning.
Yes,
it
you
was
have
blue,
you see,
and
yeah,
then in the morning it became
look,
green.
Yeah, but you have magnets underneath?
No, underneath. I connected that with magnets. I sent one more link to... Yes, you can see.
Okay.
So
what happened?
In
what
1
happened
week,
with... Yeah.
So when I start the system, the water became white, like you see it. It's the same all the time. And at first, my nanowire was completely black. This that you see that is twisted. And in 1 week, it became like this, partly black, partly not black. And at first, in the bottom, I couldn't see any material. Then I decided to try to take some. So when I took it, it was looking like CU organs, but in the next morning it became green. And I can see some particles of black and some particles of copper, I think.
But you put the
And the magnet
material.
is the
You put the material out of its place to a new container.
yes.
You change the environment. You change the condition. Understand what you've
Yeah,
changed.
I just stuck the guns out and they change rapidly. Like I never seen
Yeah,
guns to change like this.
because what happened? Just stop. If you look at the wire in the jar, it's back into like copper. Yeah. What I see
Yeah,
in your
some part.
jar, yeah, it's not black anymore. It's more copper and black. Yeah.
Yes.
So where do you think that nano coating has gone? The
Yeah, I
condition
think
you
it
had
went to
in
the
your,
bottom.
yeah, but you don't see that green, do you? It was whitish, or is it greenish at the
It
bottom?
was whitish, then it come blue, and then come green, and I can see the black particles also now.
So this is your GANS material. Because of the twisting you've done in your wire and the way you have set it up, in the jar, in that environment, you had an environment that you could keep CO2 near enough. When you changed it, because there were nano copper oxides or nano coppers in the mixture, but you could not see it, they stay as a transparent. Then when you change the condition, the copper oxide became copper oxide, and it showed itself that way. But when you change the environment again, or the environment around your lab, or in the environment around your container was different, then they become a different GANs. You change the environment and it's surprising to you. But if you go back to the origin, these are all the nano copper which were on the wire.
Mr. Kesh, I think there's a magnet inside there too, wasn't there, Ivan?
Doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, if there's a
that magnet keeps the condition at the CO2 level, most probably.
the magnet will be deteriorated by the salt water as well. I found that I had a magnet in salt water and it basically came apart after a while. So you have nickel plating that comes off, and then the neodymium, and then iron, all sort of in order.
But what he sees as a green, he has delayed the time of transformation from the detachment from the cup in the jar to the time in the container. That's all it is. So now that they're in an environment that has come out, there's nothing strange about it. You change the environment, so now manifests itself. But the copper oxide, the copper as nanomaterial, which has come off the wire, is already in the solution. Now you have given it a chance in the other container to manifest itself. This is what I said, you start making material out of the plasma of the systems, the way we showed on the Marco's system. You create a condition and then it manifests itself, but it's always there, depends how much you want. The slice of the bread is there, how thick and how big you want it, you decide.
A little green and moldy in this case.
Yeah, but it's a copper.
Yeah.
It's a copper oxide.
Yeah.
It's most probably has linked up with a nanomaterial, as you say, with a magnet or another material which is in the jar, and it manifests itself in a different plasmatic magnetic field strength, which we absorb or we observe it as a different color.
Is it possible he's created a material that no one else has seen before, no one else has experimented with?
It is once because I saw Lisa in one of the chats, and she was talking that when they measured the material, the GANs, it shows itself. In Raman spectroscopy and magnetic field spectroscopy in any levels, the magnetic field, gravitational field of the plasma manifests itself as a matter gravitational field strength. But when you do the chemical test on it, it does not show itself. And we know this from the report from Nuclear Center in Italy, the research was done by the government. That was one of the puzzles they had.
So it may not show up in the test that way, but could it in fact be a new material that hasn't been experimented with before?
These measurements are well known. We most probably, you got to realize the gravitational magnetic field of this planet, which dictates the boundary of the elements which can manifest in it. And because you are using the materials from this planet, you cannot manifest more than what it allows. There are
So I
certain
mean,
more materials we can see, but we cannot see anymore.
so the green, say the green GANs as a, for example, we don't often see it sort of as a bright green like that. Could it not be some new material, or is it just another recombination?
No,
Not
let
new,
me
not a new
explain to you.
element, not
No,
a new element, but a
no.
new combination that might
It's a
have
new
particular
combination
qualities.
of the plasma which you haven't seen. It's most probably, let's say you had a nickel coating, or you had a, what do you call it, a different mixture of nickel and zinc on your magnet, which released its material and is given conformation, because look at it, the jar is not the forward straight single wire. It's twisted. It's the same as what Eric showed. So every twist you put in the gravitational magnetic field, you create a different environment and energy field force. And realize when we say energy in our terminology is magnetical gravitational plasmatic field force. Then you understand most probably he's added to the mass of the plasma, and that's what we get. Most probably, most probably what has happened, why we see it in this color, is because the gas of CO2, magnetic gravitational mass, is added to the copper. And then what you see is not CuO, you see CuO, CO2. Or Cu, CO2, or CO3. Now we see a composite plasmatic molecule structure. And we all see this in open anyway.
And that's why you go to different states.
Yes. The color of the plasma shows its mass. And in a coming time, we will make a chart like this in the foundation. That when you see a material, you know what it could be. Instead of having the periodic table, you go by plasmatic magnetic color shape. Immediately you can recognize it. And there are billions of them, it's not the few. This is how you understand.
So a color is an indication of strength.
Yes. Yeah, it's a strength of the mass, center mass. Because it's a center mass which decides the color, because how much it radiates at that point. And then you have environmental condition which you have to add to it, because you can release it, but in different environmental magnetic field compression, as a plasma energy, you get the same color, but in different field environmental pressure. This is how you recognize your 3P GPS in the space. Each position has a field flow mass, and you tune to that mass. It's like you say, I see you at the fuel station on such and such a highway between two cities. Then you both know where you are, but there is no city, but you know there's a fuel station there. This is what is to come. This will come with the collaboration with the setup of the new university, and Professor Lutzi and other scientists who are collaborating, and French scientists. There are a lot of them who are just coming in to complete. I know 2-3 professors have already resigned position.
So there's a question.
Start. We have to add to the knowledge. We have to calibrate it.
Right, just a quick one about the black GAN. So black GANs should be a heavier mass.
Black GANs is in the nano state, is not a GANs. When you find black material at the bottom of your pods, is still in nano state, matter state. We see a lot of it, it's very common. A black GANs is the state of the black hole in the center of the universe. What you see as material black This is a plasmatic of, what do you call it, Coulomb's barrier of GaNs materials, which they detach as one lump sum. In fact, they are still in a GaNs state. They're in a nano state and not in a GaNs state. Don't forget what black means. Black means a plasma which can absorb all the spectrum of the fields in the universe. And Earth is too weak to support such a condition. If you had such a thing in your jar, the whole planet Earth would have gone into it, because it's that powerful. So what you have is just a nanostructure in a molecular attachment. As what they've done, they reposition themselves from the copper wire into the liquid. We see it, we've seen it all the time. They have a Coulomb's barrier, but internally they are matter state, but in the nano state of the matter. They have not converted into the GaNs. Next question.
The next question, I think you had asked about the recent announcement by China and the, I can't remember his name, Zhu? I'm not sure. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce it. But the recent television program from China describing the MagRev technology to the Chinese on public television. Can you explain that a little bit?
I've just seen this myself recently. Lisa tells me this is from last year. Apparently it just come to Elia and it was passed on to me, or somebody has put it up. These scientists, Professor Zhu, these are the people who were the backbone in introduction of the technology to the government and apparatus of the Chinese structure, as far as I can understand. And these are the people who understood the technology, and books have been given to them for peer reviewing, as I've been told by Mr. Chu. I don't know how it's been done or not yet. But these are the scientists, as I understand, were studied the technology on the principle of its use and application in recommendation to the central government by the leadership. And this program goes on the back of what they've done, and that's why you see different kind of development in China. It's by what do you call it, by what these scientists have put available or made available in understanding the technology by the leadership. There will be more coming out of China. We are working in different direction with the Chinese, which will be disclosed in due time. At the moment, a lot of governments want to sign a non-disclosure and agreements of non-disclosure. That we don't disclose anything, but the thing is, we are so transparent, how can you not disclose? We had the same situation with the Japanese government in signing agreement with them. And it came down to one page, a few lines, just for keeping people satisfied. The number of leading scientists around the world are advising their governments in the direction which technology has to be accepted. Now, with what we've shown today and the past 7 days, and what we have released, we are enforcing the technology through common man. I'm sure very soon Professor Luzzi in Italy and the university here, and most probably with the way Sohail is working in China, and we see collaboration now starting directly with Japanese, the new dimensions will be added to the science of man. Because it's physically there, you use it, you cannot deny what you have in your hand. There are a lot of unrest among top scientists around the world in respect to what is being released, because their position has been compromised. A lot of the nanoscientists have been discredited in the past 2-3 months internally by nanotechnology and scientists, because they realized they've been tapping into Keshe Foundation free knowledge and registering and trying to patent technologies on their own name as their own discovery. So, as I said to a patent officer very recently, every nano patent on which is registered by European patent, world patent, is invalid. So anybody sells your technology nano-based, you can copy it because it's a free technology taken from the release of the knowledge we did with the Keshe Foundation. Even as the recent as in Farnborough show, which the company in England confirmed that they have a nanomaterial which is 99.9% absorbing all the light. This is technology which is taken from the Keshe Foundation. They just tested it and they confirmed it, but they tried to register as their own development.
I also note that Iran recently became number 7 in the world from number 8 of publishers of papers on nanotechnology. They are now rapidly rising up. They were 10th a couple of years ago. They've gone up to 8th and now just 7th recently in the world in nanotechnology.
The thing is, if we release a paper, which we have done about nanotechnology, and release it on the Iranian government, scientists, publications, Iran becomes number 1. But the position is irrelevant. How mankind receives the knowledge is important. And as I said before, a lot of success in nanotechnology in Iran goes on the back of the achievements of Mr. Sajjadi, and the Iranian ambassador to Moscow. He is a very big supporter and is a highly intellectual person in that level. He's a scientist at the level of ambassador. And as I said before, he was a scientist who attracted me back to Iran for development of the technology. And there's a solid core of nanophysicists and scientists which they collaborate between both nuclear and the nanotechnology for advancement of the technology. And Mohammad Sajjad is one of the flag bearers for this development. One of the advantages which is now we will come and show has been the production of 20,000 plus RPM centrifuge system for medical application by Iran, through the back of the nanotechnology and the nuclear industry development. And in a very simple way, I've been told by Arman that the small reactors, tiny ones, can go up to 18,000. In conjunction with the plasma created at the high level, as I said, you will see new attractions with this system. Because we passed the barrier material level into the plasma and into the transition level very soon with these high-speed reactors. But we have to see how fast and how high we can get these reactors rotating.
That'll be a challenge for my ping pong balls. They've been up to 10,300 so far, so I'm up for that.
I think we have to measure what we can achieve in the small reactors.
Yeah, we have to get more in the serious system. I don't know if the ping pong balls is serious enough for that.
Actually, the ping pong ball is one of the best things you have ever done.
Well,
because
actually,
your knowledge to the level that every man can have one. You know, our reactors are very looking sophisticated, expensive. When you put a 1 cent ping pong ball next to it, every man knows, understand that they're not far from the technology and the knowledge.
That was my purpose in creating
more
them, yes.
Balls. Yeah. Make as many ping pong balls as you can.
Next week I will show something that will amaze people with the ping pong balls. I'll tease you with that one. Well, that would be good. Get Guy to juggle them, but no, let's say a way to keep them in the air without juggling.
Levitation.
Yeah.
No, that's been done.
I know it's been done.
But show it with the GANs inside.
That's right. It's never been done with GANs inside, has it? So this is the challenge.
I've done this. I know exactly where you are.
But have you done with it? Have you done it in a vacuum chamber instead of with pressure?
They create their own vacuum condition.
Well, if you let air in a pinhole, yes, it'll create a jet inside. So that's one of the keys.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Because the core which Armon is putting together, we will test both for vacuum and non-vacuum condition. But you got to understand, in a vacuum, in a space, you have no vacuum condition inside the reactors, inside the spacecraft. Otherwise, everybody will be floating, and you don't need it because you create the gravitational field naturally through your reactors.
But what about inside a reactor? Could not it work more efficiently using a vacuum instead of the water, which works as a vacuum?
It creates it itself.
Mm-hmm.
That bubble you see is very much full of magnetic fields at high level, but to man it looks like a vacuum bubble.
But it's tempting to add some sort of material to that bubble condition, such as argon or argon and hydrogen or something like that, to create that bubble in the middle. Would not be advantage?
You cannot do it because it will reject it to the boundary. Next question. Is there any another question, or shall we call it a day?
Well,
we are nearly 3 hours into this.
if I can ask the question I was trying to ask.
Oh, Lord, we forgot about you. Good morning. Where are you?
Have the sound
in
on
Canada.
Are you in Canada?
No, I'm in Canada. Yeah. With meters now around. Different condition.
You sound different when you're in Palma, very cheerful, and when you're in Canada. You freeze up somehow.
Yeah, well.
I hope it doesn't happen to the brain, huh?
No. My brain is boiling right now. I'm trying to have some fun here.
Fun.
Yeah, maybe that's part of the health workshop also, but what exactly the pain patches does with the nerve and the pain itself, maybe Elia can help us with something like that.
I think we explain that in the workshop when we release it, because people have to understand it, what it does and how it works. Once we release the pain pad, we'll put a part of the program especially for it, in how it does, how scientifically we see it as a matter level and how we see it as a plasma level, and how it works in a level of the body of the man, than in the, what do you call it, as a field flow plasma, not matter state.
I imagine it's something as a bridge between one end of the nerve and the other. At least I try to explain it myself that way.
Bridge with what? Can you explain?
Well, my idea is the pain itself is high electrical potential between one end of the nerve and the other. And this pain patch works as a bridge between both of them, so levels the electrical potential and the pain is gone. At least that's what to my experience.
No. Let me explain pain from a space point of view. Pain from our point of view is when electric charges are released by the conversion of the carbon from diamond structure to graphite. So the information which comes continuously from the brain in an electric plasmatic condition comes and discharges into the matter environment, or what they call it, gas environment, as a matter. And it's a continuous electric charge, is a discharge. This, if you want to translate it, is that when we get amputation, the nerve, the end of the nerve receives the information in micro, nano watt from the brain. And as it has nowhere to go back up, it releases it into the environment of the gas matter, of the plasma, of the muscle. And that discharge of what do you call it, magnetic gravitational energy manifests itself to us, reflects back again to the brain as something it doesn't understand. We call it pain. With the pain pads, we change at the position of the information transfer back to the brain as pain, conversion of the carbon into diamond structure. So you bridge the gap, and in that process, then the what you call the waste process system of the body removes what you call the excess, what you call lactic acid and the rest. All we do in this process, we add to the plasma, which that plasma changes. This pad just happens to be in the right magnetic gravitational field strength of the conversion of the amino acid from the conductor to a resistor. And that's why it's so effective and immediate. And then because there is no report of the discharge at a point through another nerve system to the brain, it registers at no pain. This material coincidentally happened to be in that field of strength. We have a few materials in that way. Over years of research, I have found out how it is the composition of it, and now we release it. You got to understand pain in a real term, in a plasmatic condition, not in matter level electron or electric current. All it happens, what pain is the energy which comes from the brain through neurosystem, which is released in the plasmatic condition, and then is reported back by another nerve back to the brain. Even using different layer of the same nerve system. So it's the release of energy in a plasmatic condition, which then is too much, and it goes back to the brain as a pain. All we do in these pads is we create a condition to transfer the energy release as a gravitational magnetic field by these pads is equal and just enough to switch the carbon structure to diamond structure, from graphite to diamond. That's why it's so effective and so rapid. It does not do much with the structure of the physicality, and it cannot be used for any other ways to be abused. Because it again goes back to the peace process. When it's happy, you have peace. When you understand there is no need, there is peace. And that's all it does. You still look at it as an electron and electric vibration. And the body of the man is made of GaNs in the plasmatic condition. Electrons do not exist. Even though we measure part of it which reduced to the matter level as electron level. And we say this is the electron flow of the nerve. How can a plasma transfer electron level, matter level? It's impossible. You pick up the residual and you call it, what do you call it, electrons. It's the leftovers. But that's the only tools we had up to now to measure it. With the new tools which we are developing in Italy in conjunction with Albania, these new systems will become available. Then you can measure actual plasmatic magnetic field.
Is it possible, I don't know how to say it, okay, I'm gonna start with example, like with the cancer patient, I tried these paths. We need to cross two paths.
No. No, you cannot do. Because the cancer information is information given from different part of the body.
No, I'm not talking about the cancer. She dropped the morphine, so that's the good part of it with the pain patches. Um, but at a certain point, we needed to cross two pain patches to kill the pain. Maybe
You have
that's
to realize the structure of the pad. The crosses are made already within the structure of the pad. You
maybe
understand? You
because
don't
the
need to
area
cross.
was too big or something.
No,
The,
you don't need to cross it. In a way, you can wrap it, but you make it the same. The field is constant. But the way these pads are made and the structure of the pad, the crossing of the fields is already dictated. I have systems, I built systems which can cross the whole body of the man. But these pads have certain field dimension, and when you wrap it like around the leg, you create the bone has become the center point like a black hole, and the rest fill the fields in. So it's very effective, very rapid.
I wanted to note that Ludmill's pads are nano-coated plastic, and the ones that you're talking about, Mr. Kesh, are different materials. Is that true? And would that affect the the way that the body responds and the way the pain might be dissipated, or is it the same basic effect?
It's the same basic effect. There is, when you use, let me rephrase it. Nanomaterials are magnetic field balls. But you have to go a further step down in understanding their interaction with GANs, what you put in it. And the GANs is the body of the man. With the pads which we put out, it just happened to be at the level, just happened to be. It's not that we've done a lot of research and tried to get credit for it. Due to different developments we've done over years, this material happens to be just about the right strength of the field of the human body communication line in the plasmatic level, which can convert and switch what do you call it, the carbon from graphite into diamond. We have tested these with MS and it doesn't work because it's a different condition through the emotion. These fields are at the level of the physicality. We have this.
Do you mean it doesn't work for the pain of MS as well?
Yeah, but it doesn't eradicate the problem. The pain.
Right. It will help for pain, but not for the problem. Even with MS,
it
is that
might
what you're
do.
saying?
Is yeah. In the long run, with tests we might do, but every time we have tested them, they do not show the result. Maybe with the new.
That might be similar with cancer as well. It might help with pain, but it won't help with the actual
yeah, because you have to find the source of the change.
Right.
With the cancer, the source of the change comes from operation of two glands. One is thyroid, one is parathyroid, and one is the thymus.
With the cancer, I mean something completely different. They butchered this lady under the arm, cut
You see, when you do cancer with operation, the pain you take away is from the neural system of the matter, not the cancer.
Yeah, I know, but the problem was they cut her breast, they cut her under the arm. The scar is about half-meter long. They butchered
Yeah,
her.
but because they had
With-
to go to the lymph to remove the lymph. Because
Yeah,
they
they
consider
did. They did. They removed the
that's
breast and everything else was like 40 centimeters scar there. So we were trying to kill the pain and to some extent worked. I make a long patch which was about 5-6 centimeters by about 40 centimeters, and work to some extent, but to kill completely the pain, we need to cross two patches to cover.
The thing is, ask Sohail to send you the patches. You will find it'll work totally different and more effective in a way because it has a higher depth. You got to realize a lot of pain which is felt by people, especially with the breast cancer or prostate cancer removal and ovary removal, is a psychological pain that there is no physical material for it to remedy it. Because it's the essence of not being complete as a being. Even though you get at the age of 60, you still hope that you'll be able to create life. And then you have to breastfeed it. It's very much, I call it, I was explaining to Armand about the Jewish shoes. If you see, sorry, I'm half Jewish, but I always talk about it because it's in the way of mentality. If you look at the people about 50, 60, 70 years old in the Jewish people, they have a loose shoe in their foot because they always buy one size bigger in case the foot grows, they have a shoe. You understand? This is the psychological belief of man that is still have place for development. And a lot of psychological pain comes with the removal of breast. Is that it's not a physical, it's a psychological in feeling a lack of being complete. And you cannot replace it with any path. Psychological cups we develop, they do work to extent. But the point is that a body, a person strips every day or night to put clothes on, to wash, and they feel it. And they cannot change it. Pain is psychological. Whatever you have achieved physically, you have achieved. The rest is psychological, which because it releases energy, that energy, that plasmatic magnetic field transfers to the physical part of the brain, and it has nowhere to go. And the pain is actually, it's felt in the brain itself, not in the organ, but because it's where it was destined for, you feel it at the breast. It's very simple, but I've done a lot of research into this a long time. That's why psychological cups are backbone of a lot of work we do. Fibromyalgia is the same. Yeah, fibromyalgia is the same. Our Marco is explaining. You see, the beauty with the teaching here is because I teach everything across from medical to space and energy. People like Marco and Arman learn the whole package. That's how the scientists in the universe should be. Understand the totality, then you can understand and connect and relate. And then you can build systems for it, and then you know the limitation.
Okay, Mr. Kesh, I think we should probably wrap things up here unless you'd like to carry on a bit more. It's well over 3 hours now, so.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. We'll see you tomorrow in the medical part. It'll be very nice, I know. And if they won't, and the ones who don't like it, you'll find a connection between top and bottom. Elias called it anus and mouth.
Yes, it's very strange and controversial title, I would say, but it's also intriguing at the same time. With Elia, I'm sure it'll be strictly technical and strictly associated with the Kesh side as well as the science. She brings it together very nicely.
But
let's hope so.
I think it's all about the hydrogens, is a rumor I heard.
But do you know anything which Elliot touches is not controversial?
Everything is the beginning at the end.
No, because she understands. She understands the technology and the science, and with her background, you can see the connections.
Yep. And
It's a flow,
Yeah.
a cycle.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll see you tomorrow.
looking forward to it.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
All the
Cash.
best. All the best.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Mr. Cash.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that ends the 46 Cache Knowledge Seekers Workshop. Once again, thank you everybody for attending.